Welcome to the Tailwind Marketing Podcast, where we talk to IT marketing leaders about how to drive more sales. Hosted by Carlos Corredor, founder of Condor, an Inc. 5000 company and one of the fastest growing IT marketing agencies in the US.
3, 2, 1, 0.
This episode is brought to you by Condor Digital Marketing Agency. Your marketing team is stretched thin, running campaigns, building decks, reporting on leads that no one follows up on, but it's not enough. Need help turning all the marketing efforts that no one sees into pipeline that no one can ignore. Condor is built to work with marketing departments of mid-market B2B tech services across their main functions, demand generation, website, and marketing operations. You can learn more at condoragency.com. Today, we want to welcome Shelly Mann. She is the VP of Marketing at SIA Consulting, which is a firm that helps companies modernize how they manage documents, data, and processes, especially in SAP environments. Shelly also runs a podcast called the Parenting Well Podcast. She loves the outdoors, anything from biking, skiing, running. So, of course, she lives in Colorado. She's at Boulder or close to Boulder, where also SIA is based. We'll welcome Shelly. Glad to have you. And please, tell us a little bit more about your background.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks for having me on your podcast. So I am the VP of Marketing for SIA. I've been in this role for probably about 5 years. Prior to that, I did a lot of other things. I taught in university for 20 years. I have an online program for divorced fathers to adjust and parent after divorce, which was my dissertation coming out of that. And the interesting part of that is what made me fall in love with marketing, because I started that project with measuring parent-child relationship differences, and I ended that project writing a dissertation about how to bring an online program to market. And so that sort of put a twist in my career. And I pursued being in the marketing field. SIA Consulting is an incredible company. They have about 20 years of being in business, a little over 20 years. And we focus on intelligent content management, which is the new evolution of enterprise content management. And then we also have a SIA or an SAP solution that does both document management and archiving for people who have SAP systems and are moving from ECC6 to S/4HANA, which is a sort of forced move in the SAP world. So helping them do that and make their performance of their systems much better.
All right. Thanks for sharing how you got into marketing. That's really interesting. And how about into writing? Were you a writer before marketing or after?
I have been a writer my whole life. It is a very big passion of mine. And I think that's really what took me into university, was teaching people how to write, not just how to write, but how to consume information and then translate it into something that fits the audience you're talking to. So in some cases, that is writing an academic journal. And then in some cases, that is, I'm going to go into the community and work with parents in a parenting program or in an outdoor program. And I need to be able to take what people write about and make it consumable for someone, usable for someone. And so that is a huge, huge passion of mine.
Yeah, it's I think, that's what we're gonna be talking about a lot in today's episode. I had a meeting recently and we were discussing, some of our sales materials, right? And I'm always frustrated with our copywriting. I have a certain background in the advertising industry, traditional advertising industry, and I know how creative teams that send their work to Cannes Awards, I know how that works, and I learned to appreciate how tough that is. And I think that's one of the things that AI has actually made things worse, is now everybody thinks that they can write marketing copy, right? And it's very hard to recognize a mediocre copy, or like, let's say a lot of people see mediocre and they think it's good. That's really dangerous, right? So I would love perspective on that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that in some ways it has made it so everybody can just write a blog article and just pump it out there and call it good. But I think in a world where anyone can write like that, we have to pay attention to the human nuances of that. We have to remember that the person who's consuming that content is interested in your voice. They're interested in it being personalized and reflecting your brand and things like that. And AI isn't really going to do that. It's always going to be a tool for you versus something that is going to just completely capture everything that needs to be captured to deliver the message you're looking for. So I look at it like I use it a lot. But I use it, I think, in a way where I am creating something that I am asking the tool to tell me, how would I optimize this versus, or sometimes I will use it to say, give me an outline. What are the top 10 things I should talk about if I want to talk about this particular thing? It's always about prompt engineering. It's about data in. Good data in is going to get good data out. So good questions in, good writing in is going to get good data out for what you're looking for. But then I think the other thing that's super important is you have to then apply your knowledge, your experience, what you actually know about the industry. And in my case, almost always when I write something, if I'm writing for my team, I will send it to someone on my team and say, have a look at this and personalize this. If I'm doing an email campaign for one of my sales guys, I might use AI to help me get it started, but I always say, you guys know this, you're the ones who are talking to the customers, please make this, something that is going to work well. And I think that is a good way to utilize AI without just totally depending on it or thinking it's going to be the magic bullet.
The other way I was going back and forth with ChatGPT, I'm writing some copies for the homepage, and I was not convinced. He was listening and giving me what I was asking, but it still sounded too formal. It sounded too AI, So finally, I actually said, no, think that you're, act like a creative writer that is going to send this to Cannes Awards, and that was a game changer. Then it started giving me things that I was okay. Now we're talking. So what? When you talk about prompt engineering, what recommendations do you have there?
So I will do a few things. I will ask first for just a general outline, just to see what it's like. You said, I kind of want to know what's going to happen first. What's the first things you're going to say? If I give you a topic, what are you going to tell me? I will then add in my copy, or I'll add in very specific questions. So I'll say things like, just like you said, I'll say, I want this message to be a good differentiator is sometimes you want content that is very educational, and sometimes you want content that's very persuasive. So if you use those kind of prompts, like you say, I'm sending this to such and such, this is going to be a tool for me to a call to action kind of email. Can you please send me copy that is going to be very persuasive? Then it'll change the context of it. So I'll focus on the target audience. I'll focus on the tone I want. And then one of the questions I always ask is, if I'm trying to reach these people, what am I not asking you to do? And it'll always say, very good question. And then it'll tell me, it'll say, well, if you want to go this, and it'll sometimes give suggestions. Like if you're going this direction, I would do these things. If you're going this direction, I would do these things. But I think, really asking the questions and digging deeper and deeper. The other thing I'll sometimes do that I think helps with prompt engineering is I will use, because I like to write a lot of thought leadership type of things, especially when I'm in the blog, ebook, white paper mode. I will put examples or specific research studies, analyst reports, websites, and say, I want my content to be at the same caliber as this. I want it to reflect the message that's on this particular ebook, whatever I'm looking for, whatever I know that I'm reading that I believe is top quality content and information, I will ask it to compare it to that and to write content that's similar to that. That can be really helpful.
And you use that, obviously, it sounds like you also adjust the prompt based on the type of content you're creating, right? Is this let's say a long form PDF, that is more educational? Is this like an ad copy for a paid search campaign that is more like persuasive to click on, right? It sounds like that's part
Mhm.
of your prompting strategy.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, I would say the other thing that I do a lot in my prompting strategy is I'm super focused on SEO. So I will either do, sometimes I've done my own research, or the firm that I work with has given me some content and some keywords and some things that I need to focus on, that I will put those in there and say, I want you to make sure that you're using these phrases, these keywords. And then afterward, I'll say, what have I missed from an SEO optimization perspective? So I'll have it analyze what I've written and compare it to what content, keywords, things I haven't talked about that would be important. And I've seen that to be really helpful as well.
Yeah, I love every time I think I have something that I like, that's also a problem. I have to know when to stop, because sometimes, then I spend 30 minutes, let's say, and it's something good enough, but I continue, like, I like to continue to improve it. And honestly, also, when you ask those questions, you keep asking, they're going to keep answering, right? And a lot of times they have good ideas. So, but yeah, in general, I prefer to err on the side of spending a little more time, because obviously the copy is everything, right? And, it's going to, especially, also there's a difference, right? If it's the last paragraph of a long form PDF, well, I mean, you don't have to pay much attention as if it's the headline or the description of your homepage, right? But yeah, no,
Right.
always stay a little too long, towards the end, asking some final questions and adding some things, and sometimes that ends up, you know, going back to the basics and from the start and creating an even better idea, or concept, right? But yeah, I agree.
Right. Yeah, yeah, definitely differs.
And well, I mean, you have a lot of experience, as you mentioned, as a writer, creating content in different formats, right? Before we jump into the next topic, like, what else would you recommend? And perhaps not necessarily as somebody that is going to become a great writer themselves, but like as managing a team, to be able to generate uh, a certain number of volume. I'm not gonna say you don't have to exaggerate, because I do think quality is more important than quantity, but ultimately every quarter you should be generating, I don't know, 5, 10 good content pieces, right? So like, what other advice would you give them?
Yeah, so you're saying if for someone who's managing the people who are writing that content, that's kind of where you're going. Okay. So I do think you have to have rules and guidelines. I think that's the first thing I would say, is that we have certain rules around anonymity. Sorry, I couldn't say the word. There's ways in which we believe, and maybe this is because I work in the content space, but there's ways in which we believe we have to protect people's anonymity, and we need to make sure that we're being respectful. I think that I would encourage people to work in teams. So writing, I think, is something that you get in your own head. It's kind of like, do you remember back maybe in the day when you were in high school or college, when you've written a paper and you read it over and over and over again, and you still miss like 4 typos or 4 like grammar problems that are just so blatantly obvious, but it's your paper and you've written it and you've been so ingrained in it that you just don't even see it. I think it's important to have somebody else read it. And if there's someone inside of that group that specializes in what you're talking about, I think you want to first go to that person and say, just give this a quick review and tell me if I've, articulated this right, what you think. I agree with you that when you're creating content and you're trying to do it quickly, there's nothing wrong with using what we have available to us to like get that together and get it together. And then you start working as a collaborative team, like we've always done, where we've always leaned on people, and in the writing world, especially, that's why people hire editors and they hire people to really support them in that creation, because it's a, not to sound cheesy, but it's a work of art. It's something that you're putting your name on. You want to put it out there, and you don't want it to be inaccurate or look like, oh, she just popped that into ChatGPT.
I think that's key, have some pride, have some pride in your in what you're putting out there, independently of it's a blog post with your name and signature, or if it's just a mug. But it's ultimately your website, you know, and you made it, right? So you should feel
Yeah.
proud about it, right? I started my career as a journalist, and you know, people are really, you know, proud and picky with how to say things. And when the editor changes something, they get really upset. So I feel like, you know, that's not something that it's healthy and much needed, you know, translate into the marketing world.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, you also mentioned that ability or skill to generate good content efficiently, you know, has allowed you to bridge, you know, to create that bridge with sales, right? And to even become good friends, you know, with the sales team, which is not that common, right?
Yeah.
How, you know, can you elaborate on that and in general that?
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I look at my role in marketing as I'm trying to make both the company have visibility for what we do and build reputation, you know, there, work with our partners so that we're also like connected with other people and we're not just saying, oh, we're the special sauce, but our partners can say, yep, they're the special sauce. And then I'm helping my team have time to do the job that they're trying to do, right? And I want my sales team to go out into the world and go into the meetings they're having with customers as the expert. I want them to feel comfortable when they sit down to have a conversation with someone that that person knows they know what they're talking about. What I love is when my sales team will say, I think it'd be great if we did a blog on blah, 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 right? I will either write it and then have them review it and do their personalization and add to it. So it's a co-written project and put their name on it. Or I think the thing that happens a lot too is someone on my sales team will say, I think this is an important message to get out to the people that I'm typically talking to. They'll pop it into Chat GPT. They'll generate exactly the copy you were talking about in the beginning, where Chat GPT just went, here's the basics, you know, here's the topic, here's the basics. And then they give that to me. And then I'm able to take that and say, okay, now let's craft something that says something, you know? And so it's a time saver and it's a way for us to collaborate where they can go do their job. They can go prospect, they can go work on closing accounts. But when someone sits down with one of my sales guys and they go to our website and look at our blog, they'll see 5 or 10 blog articles from that person. And that's because we work together to lift them up and lift our company up. So that's an example about how we work together, especially in the content space.
And you also mentioned, you know, that let's say situational base, right? Like if they come to you, you know, and there's, I don't know, like a potential client that mentioned something, right? Like from a nurturing standpoint, that's also an area of opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. But we work toward a lot of account-based, excuse me, account-based marketing approach. And so, yeah, if it's common we'll take SAP for an example. You know, we have a very good SAP archiving strategy. The difference between ours and others is it includes document management, intelligent document management as well. And so we're not just putting their stuff in archive, we're helping organize things, make things more accessible. In that space, one of my sales guys will oftentimes be working with the person who's on the ground solving the problems. So they're the one that actually has to deal with the fact that they have too much data, it's not performant, blah, blah, blah. They're not necessarily the one that makes the decision all the time, but they're the person dealing with the problem. This is a current project I'm working on right now. My salesperson contacted me and said, you know, what I really need is this is my list of accounts. These are the people I already have in the pipeline. But one of the things that's not working is their CIO and their CTO don't actually understand why this is important, because I'm always talking to the person on the ground that's working with the problem. So we are creating an account-based marketing campaign for him to be able to then have kind of a stepping stone in a way. And when I create it, the emails will be from him. So like I said, I will write them, we will work on it together. He'll put his personal touch and they'll be from him. And these are clients he's already working with. So it just gives that little bump where he's able to then have another touch point, and also a touch point at a different level of persona within the deal.
Mhm. And what let's say, from the standpoint of the talking about the function, right, of demand generation, how important is to have great content out there versus doing the other things right, the more tactical, let's say, execution. And
Yeah. I think it's very up there, especially when we think about content in the broad spectrum of what we have. We have a website. The first thing I do when I'm going to work with someone is I go look at their website. So I think you have to have good content, easily accessible content. It has to be clear what you do. All of those things are things that are related to the content side. So just that piece and alone is really important. But then I also think what I was talking about around our goal is to, say there's 5 of us in the same space and we're competing with each other, and someone's going to go look at 5 different websites. My goal is that website ranks, that our content ranks, that we show up quickly. That's the SEO piece, that when they look at it, they see that it's high quality, research-based, best practice kind of content. I feel like that is the piece that, especially at that person who's investigating, do I want to work with this company? They're doing their research, right? They want to know, who are you? What do you do? What's it going to be like to work with you? And how you present yourself through your content, your website really shows a lot about, what your skills are, how you articulate yourself. You can use that to represent brand value, company values, everything. So I think it's critical. The tactical piece is obviously important, but even in the tactical piece, one of the first things, we just brought a new salesperson on with our team, and one of the first things he asked is, what are the assets that I have that I can use when I'm talking to people, right? So they want good assets they can put in front of someone that says, here's a one-pager that describes this solution for you. If you want more information, you can go here. So, I think that is content is a critical piece in making the whole sales process work.
You mentioned, for example, for the website, right? Obviously, you need to, it needs to rank, and it needs to be found by, search engines, but it also needs, let's say, your voice and tone, right? So how do you balance those two? Which of the two do you tend to give preference to?
It's a good question. I would say they're pretty equal for us. I would say that we prioritize our company values and our tone, and then we make sure that we're doing the things that would help us rank. Like one of the most common phrases I use all the time, or quotes I use all the time, is people want to work with people they like. That's just true. Everyone has more fun working with someone they like working with. And one of the things I've loved about being in marketing and sales is it made it easier for me to recognize that when it's not a fit, it's not a fit. So I would rather have somebody be able to go to my site, say, oh, these guys are great, but they're not doing what I want, or I don't really like their style, or whatever. I'd rather know that right off the bat and move on to the next thing, right? Because staying there, also I feel better on the other end. When someone calls me and they're trying to sell me something, I'm like, appreciate your effort. It's not a fit. And it's easy for me to just be like, I don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste mine. Let's just go find the happy things that we want to do, So, so I think it's important. Both are important, but I think you do have to represent who you are.
Yeah. That a lot of times I receive suggestions from SEO specialists, and I'm like, yeah, there's no way, and we're gonna say that in a headline or the description of.
Yeah.
Then okay, maybe you put it in the tags that are only visible for the crawlers, or you put it very, very low, almost like can we put that people cannot see? They're like,
yeah.
I understand, but it's tough. As you mentioned, right? That has my signature, or the signature of my company, my agency, right? So like when people read it, people are not SEO crawlers, and ultimately it's going to be read by people, so I want them to think, in positive terms, about it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Shelly, what else I haven't asked? One of those questions that you told me that you asked ChatGPT, I'm gonna ask. All right. What am I forgetting to ask, before we wrap up, that people would benefit from hearing from you and your experience and your passions?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think I would say to people in marketing, don't be afraid. Like I talk to people who feel like, oh my gosh, we're going to lose our jobs. We can now download a tool to make our own videos. You can do all this stuff. But the thing that we talked about kind of early on was, sure, but it's just a tool. And I think that it's important that we don't lose sight of the fact that part of marketing, part of being in this role is being creative, being adventurous. Don't be afraid to create your own content and do your own stuff. Use things like AI and other tools that you have to be quick, because the world is not going to change. This is like the biggest boom we've had since probably the invention of the computer. I don't know, but we're not going back from here. We're going to be using AI for everything. And so I think you need to find the place where you feel comfortable. I think you need to play with it. I think you need to, it's not a one-time thing. The more you sit down and you ask it questions, like you said, and just get in it and get deeper and deeper and deeper, you learn like what works for me, what's helping me get the content I want. So I think that would be my final message, is like, just don't be afraid to continue to be you, be creative, have fun, get out there and do the kind of content you love. And don't be afraid to use the tools, or that it's going to take anything away from the magic that good marketers and content creators have.
And any tips, tricks, tools, maybe the AI tools that you use, programs, or I guess anything in general. If we go a little broader, like you talk books or authors, publishers, references that you perhaps have down your sleeve.
Yeah. Well, I'm in the technology world, right? So I follow all the Forrester, Gartner. I always look at I love looking at analyst reports. I like reading things that show like data and things over time. So I'll look at like predictions for 2025 or things like that. Another great place to see analyst reports in the technology world is Deep Analysis. So I really enjoy that. I listen to a B2B podcast, and I feel bad that I can't tell you the name of it, but I think, if you hop on Spotify and you look at different podcasts that are available, there's so much content out there. I personally am a fan of the ones that sort of like how we're doing in this podcast. I like it when it's focused and it's, it really is giving some, like, what are you going to leave me with here? Did I get something? So I would say those are great places to start. Trying to think of what else you were asking, but those are some of the resources that I like. From a AI perspective, I use ChatGPT predominantly, but I also use InVideo. InVideo is a great tool for creating. If you don't have the budget to hire someone to come in and do a big, $3,000 to $10,000 project to create a video for you, if you get pictures, you get video clips of your own, you write your own copy and you plug it into InVideo. InVideo will automatically put in their stock photos that come with it, but you can then replace it. You can move things. And I just did this for a webinar we did. I just created a quick intro video that showed before the webinar started, and it was great. It was seamless, and it did take more, like we've talked about. It's not like I just plugged it in and it was great. There was one scene where everyone was jumping up and clicking their heels, and I was like, not my style, like I'll put a different picture in there, but it was fun. And I think InVideo is a fun tool to play around with if you're looking for also the creative video side of AI.
Yeah, I was at a conference last week and a company had a presentation about how they created. They used to have an ad in the Super Bowl back in the day, and now it's like, okay, it doesn't make sense for us, to spend that amount of money on a Super Bowl ad, but we want to get back on TV. It's also that that will energize the company and the culture and everything. So they did it, and they produced a 30 ad TV commercial with a budget under $5,000, right, for national TV. Using I don't know exactly what tool they didn't. I don't think they even mentioned it, but like essentially, it's one of these tools that are out there that, as you mentioned, right, it's not going to in 5 seconds. It's probably going to give you a lot of what's the word? The images that are stock images that I hate, but after if you put a little bit of heart into it, right, and a little bit of thought, then you can create something that is definitely good enough, for to take your let's say your ad game to level. So
it totally gives us, I mean, one of our not to bring up a totally different subject at the end of our podcast, but it's related. One thing that we try to do in marketing is repurpose our material, right? And so if we're taking pictures that we're going to be using on socials, we can use those same photos to plug into something like in video. And just it means that we can repurpose our work and use it in multiple ways to make an impact. So I think it's an exciting world we're living in. I really do. I think we're going to see a lot of cool things and a lot of change over the next few years.
I see so many posts that talk about that, right? Oh, you're afraid of losing your job. It's like, are there that many people are afraid of, or just people just saying that, right? Because I feel obviously, I own a marketing agency, so I have some anxiety, but I'm in general more excited about the opportunity than about the downside. But like, I don't know. Do you think there's a lot of people, or is it just people putting that, oh, don't be afraid? But I guess I can see it both ways.
Yeah, I think that's probably about true. I think it's I think there are people who are afraid and there are people who aren't, and I think that it's, I don't know. When Facebook came out, I was working in a parenting education realm, and all the parents were like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna let my kid have Facebook. Well, what did the kids do? They just made a Facebook anyway under a different name, and they had Facebook. So I look at it like that. Like, we can't deny that this is the wave we're going to ride. We just have to get on the wave, and we have to know how we want to ride the wave and go for it.
Embrace it and control what you can.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. Well, it's great to have you, Shelly. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Carlos. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Tailwind Marketing Podcast. If you enjoyed it, remember to subscribe for future episodes. Until next time.